Have analytics and technology become so ingrained into everything that all CXOs will now become CXTOs or be out of a job? A young digital marketing CEO thinks so, and the implications for IT leaders are significant. I'm Charles Rajo, and this is the TransformIT Show, presented by the Intel IT Center. I was recently in Dallas to talk with Cameron Gawley, co-founder and CEO of BuzzShift, a digital strategy agency. Today we're discussing data-informed content, the transformation of the creation process, and the unique opportunity he sees for IT leaders. Cameron, welcome to the TransformIT Show.
Thanks for having me, Charlie.
I'm really looking forward to today's conversation because I'm really passionate about the fact that IT people have to embrace how technology is being applied in a business context and kind of let go of just the focus on the technology. But what I think is fascinating is you've taken this to the nth degree. You're an IT guy who is now the CEO of a digital marketing firm. And so I just think it's a really interesting journey. And so can you just share some of that journey with us?
Yeah, not to go too far back, but starting at 16, I was an assembler of building computers, and just like a lot of other IT guys were. And so that was the day that you were selling computers, custom-built computers and everything else. Fast forward, I started getting into infrastructure, managed services, and online data backup. And so throughout college, I was helping grow a company. And I knew in order to grow that company, I really needed those business skills. I needed those marketing skills, and to build up that craft. And so I got a degree in advertising in college. And from there, I basically said, you know what? At some point, I want to help other companies grow. In 2007, it was my aha moment. I was at South by Southwest Interactive in Austin, and that's when Twitter went from 30,000 tweets to like 300,000 tweets in one day. At that point, I knew that brands were going to communicate differently, and social media really, it wasn't Facebook, it was Twitter essentially in 2007 that really got me fired up, honestly, and saw the big opportunity of where brands are really going to go with this. And so we decided to start an agency in 2009 and get out there and help companies really grow. And so I saw the gap, and the gap really was, traditional ad agencies, design firms, SEO shops, all this stuff, they weren't really focused on social. They weren't really focused on building really good creative content, but more so, they weren't looking at the data to help them inform what type of content they were going to create. And so I thought, creating this whole new type of agency where we use data to help inform what type of content we're going to create, that would be fascinating. And that's where we're at today.
Well, and you saw a gap there, right? That you saw that
Sure.
The traditional world of advertising and marketing was led by these creatives, and yet that everything was going into this digital space, and that there was an opportunity to kind of step into that gap, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that gap, I think, is 2007 was that quintessential moment of seeing the gap of, having the depth of technology, but then having the passion for marketing and having the passion for advertising. I think that's when a lot of other people started stepping up. I started seeing other people that came from the tech world start moving into this role where it could be, their traditional role as an IT director. All of a sudden, they were optimizing, websites and doing social media strategy and everything. So I felt that, it was a really interesting time where PR agencies, design firms, tech companies, they all started coming together, and social media was kind of that pivotal piece, and Twitter, for me, was that inflection point.
Well, so now you and I met when we were both speaking at a conference in New Zealand on this idea of digital disruption. And the moral of your story and the speech that you gave was really how analytics was changing everything, not only marketing, but how products themselves were developed and even the go-to-market strategies for companies. And I thought it was just fascinating. So can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, I really think that, where we're at in this world, we talk big data all the time, and I really hate the buzzword big data now, but the reality is that it's how we're leveraging the data to help tell stories now. and actually informing our content. So this whole notion of like data-informed content is fascinating to me, right? And I think that, you know, in the ad space, in the marketing space, everything is very assumption focused, where it's like, hey, I assume this is what the end user wants, right? But now we can actually look at data to tell that story a little bit differently and actually help create content. I saw Netflix actually as one of the key things that they were doing a little different than all the other networks was that they were leveraging their analytics. They were leveraging that data behind the scenes, and one of the key things I saw was House of Cards. Like, everybody loves House of Cards, but the reality is when they built House of Cards, they knew that it was going to be an Emmy-winning show before they even went to market with it, right? So reverse engineered kind of way of building content. And so they looked at, you know, David Fincher, he's the director, and they looked at Kevin Spacey, who, from a data perspective, was the #1 search for, you know, actor on their site. And then they were looking at House of Cards in the UK, and they kind of put these three things together, and they said, if we put these pieces together, bring in this award-winning director, this award-winning actor, and then leverage an existing kind of platform that they had already built, you know, with House of Cards in the UK, and apply that here in the US, they knew that they could build an Emmy-winning show, and that's exactly what Netflix did. So I think that, you know, brands can take a lot from that. They can actually take, you know, that story and say, okay, how am I looking at my analytics? How am I looking at, you know, the conversations we're having online? How am I looking at the engagement of the type of content, whether it's a 6-second video or, you know, an image or whatever? How are people engaging with that? And then looking at that data and saying, okay, we need to create more types of this content, and this is the reason why. We're just in a new world of this data-informed content, and that's exciting. It really is.
And I have to believe that that can be almost scary and certainly uncomfortable for both creatives, if we're talking about the marketing folks, but also the product designers. I mean, people who are used to having that, well, I know what the customer wants, kind of an idea. How are they adapting to this?
Yeah, so I mean, we're seeing a little bit of a trend, and it's actually a big change, a shift. Is that, you know, our CIO and our CMO, they used to kind of sit in their silos, right? So I look at traditional brands where they sit in their silos, and the fact is that these CMOs didn't have a lot of technology background. And what's interesting is that now we're seeing this merge of marketers that understand the technology, but then technologists that are passionate about marketing. And so now we're seeing this new kind of business unit kind of evolve, and it's the CMT or CMTO, Chief Marketing Technology Officer, who might have this IT background or might have this heavy tech background, but then who's passionate about marketing, right? And I think understanding the technology and understanding how to apply that towards marketing, that's one of the key things that a true CMO needs to have now. And so we're seeing a shift in the whole market. It's no longer CIOs own the space in technology, and that CMOs are the marketers. Now, CMOs now, Gartner had their research and said, you know, by 2017 that CMOs would be spending more on technology than CIOs. And
don't get me started on that.
Yeah, and that's fascinating though. And so I think that, you know, that's the world we're living in, and it's not about a battle of both. It's about how they work together and how marketing and product really overlap, and that they have to work together. So that's just where we're at right now.
If you didn't think that the world was changing yet, I have a feeling that Cameron may have just changed your mind. The way he sees analytics and data shifting the way that content is created and how entire marketing strategies are established foretell the significant changes that will be occurring across the board. In the next episode, we'll hear his views on the future of all CXOs and why this may be one of the best times ever to be in IT. Make sure you tune in the next episode to catch the rest of the interview. Until then, I'm Charles Araujo, and together we can change the world of IT.